Councilman Harris, I believe, was a complete departure from the zoning code that it replaced. And in one of those respects was a reversal on the requirement for off-street parking. You look out in some neighborhoods that were developed under the 1981 zoning code, and there are these huge seas of parking. I think Mr. English identified the places, urban redevelopments at somewhat of a disadvantage to compete with those more suburban environments. So what we did when we crafted the UDC was probably went too far in the other direction. We removed parking requirements if you have a certain amount of frontage. There are no parking requirements for outdoor seating areas. And to that end, based upon this discussion, very shortly, this body will be presented a series of amendments to the UDC that will find a more balanced approach between the requirements of the 81 code and the opposite requirements of the UDC.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure that we are clear on what this ordinance is. This ordinance is not going to grant anyone parking today. This ordinance establishes the pilot program where the neighbors are going to come back through the petition process, working with city engineering, at which point a resolution will be drafted through city engineering and come to this body. At that point, we will be able to make determinations of, and Mr. English, I'm speaking to you, Mr. English, that's where we'll make the determination of where parking will be and won't be. And I agree with Councilwoman Howard to an extent, but I want to make my position very clear. This body has asked both sides to compromise on this. Don't care who's dug in, doesn't matter. Need to reach a compromise, because when it comes to this council is pretty good at finding compromise. So everyone's going to lose something if we have to start making the decision. You guys need to work together and figure out what it is, because I'm in favor of putting multiple parking meters on it. I'm in favor of going one side or the other, because it is a taxpayer street. Engineering is going to work to do this, but what Mr. English said is absolutely correct, and Mr. Powers has shown me, you all have parking, either through a driveway, or through an alley. One of the speakers up here owns one of the vacant lots that's been allowed to grow up, which has blocked the alley. That's not the city council's issue. If you've allowed your alleys to grow up, you've taken your own parking away. What you're wanting is parking for your friends and visitors to come by. And I understand that. And I think there should be some medium found that you have that opportunity. And I think there should be some guidelines found where your kids can play and your kids can ride bicycles and your kids can be out in the street. I think there should be some guidelines played. I also would say that, Mr. English, in my opinion, if your valet people are using their street, those cars should be towed. But we'll get there when we get to the resolution part of this, because the parking garage should be what your valets utilize every moment they park a car, because folks are paying for that service, and your valet should earn their money, not drive around the corner and park a car. So I think there's going to be a middle ground found. I hope the two sides can find that without it coming here. We'll establish a resolution on what you agree with, and I hope both sides can agree with the language. But at the end of the day, it is a public street. The homeowners there have parking. If you decided for your alley to grow up, I'm sorry, go cut it down, get it fixed. Some of you have driveways. And those few that don't have parking, and it's very few, correct? I would agree that you should receive a permit for free. But outside of that, and it would be a limited permit, not 3, probably 1, and maybe 2 if your residents require that. I'm just encouraging you guys to work together, find a compromise before it has to come here, and we have to find the compromise. But I just want to make sure this body understands that this ordinance does not establish any parking perimeter for anything. It simply sets the parameter for the pilot program, which is the petition, and then it comes back to us through city engineering for a resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison, this has been delayed. It is before